Alright, I hope you've seen Joker because this is going to be the Joker spoiler talk. I'm going to spoil the Joker movie. If you haven't seen the Joker yet, I recommend that you go watch it and then come on back before you watch this video. I'm not going to spoil every little thing in the movie, not going to do it play by play, just going to talk a little bit deeper about the things that I couldn't really dive deep into in my non-spoiler review. So if you haven't seen the movie, I recommend you go watch it first. With all that out of the way, let's start talking spoilers for Joker. And let's talk a little bit more about Joaquin Phoenix. If you don't have Joaquin Phoenix in this movie, I don't think the movie turns out as great as it does because he plays the mentally ill character of Arthur Fleck phenomenally well. And one of the things that I loved about the character of Arthur Fleck is when he starts off in the beginning of the movie and you see him, he tries to have a positive attitude about everything. He's this really nice guy that the world and society and the people in Gotham are just not letting him in. He's not fitting in. They won't let him fit in. They're tearing him down. They keep beating down on this guy. And the whole time he's trying to have this positive attitude. He wants to just entertain people. He lives with his mother. He's told by his mother that he's there to bring joy and laughter to the world. And no one's letting him do that. And it's really heartbreaking at the beginning of the movie to see Arthur Fleck try to have this, bring this positivity into the world and just have the world just beat him down to the point that he really does break and become the Joker. I love the laugh that they give the Joker in this movie. Not just the Joker, but that Arthur Fleck has as part of his mental illness, which is an actual mental illness that people have in real life where he laughs and he can't stop it, he can't control it, and it actually hurts him. And this is the first time in a Joker performance that the laugh of the Joker actually really brought and displayed and demonstrated the pain and brutality that the Joker goes through. I've never heard that before in a Joker laugh. All the Joker laughs are always like this maniacal kind of evil laugh. At least that's how I always interpreted it. But this movie really brought that laugh upon as it's like the pain of the Joker and the pain of Arthur Fleck really comes out in that laugh. And there's times where he's laughing that you can tell he doesn't want to laugh. He's trying to sob through, and it's really heartbreaking to watch this guy that at the beginning of the film has such a heart to him that when he does go towards the violence, that's when it's kind of really disturbing to watch because Arthur Fleck in this movie works as like this sign spinner. He's a clown. He works with a bunch of other coworkers that are clowns, and he's getting beaten down by his coworkers. And one of his coworkers ends up giving him a gun, saying that, hey, you just need protection. And Arthur's going, I can't have a gun. And the guy's like, it's okay, just take it. And you see him in the apartment later that night, and he's kind of going through like this fantasy in his head of what he would do to someone, and he shoots the gun, and it freaks him out. And then we go to the subway cart where he's being beaten down by those guys, and he just out of nowhere pulls out the gun and shoots them down. That was when it was shocking. That was really disturbing. And what was so disturbing about that scene is how Arthur responded to that, because you see how that moment really empowered him. You see how he feels good about it. He even later goes on to say that he thought it would bother him, but it didn't. And that's when the little nuggets of the Joker being born are really starting to come out in Arthur. I also loved how they used Arthur's delusions in this movie. They introduced a girlfriend in his life played by Zazie Beetz, and their relationship wasn't really that defined. It wasn't really delved into. She was just kind of there for moments in Arthur's life when he was trying to stand up for the first time and failed on stage. When his mother was in the hospital, she was there. And you find out later on that it was all a delusion when he goes into the apartment and it's revealed that she was never there. That was all in Arthur's delusions. That was such a legit plot twist that I did not see coming in the movie. And I love how they don't specifically say whether he killed her or not. I happen to believe that he did because it cuts right from that scene of in the apartment to him in his own apartment with a bunch of sirens and police officers coming into the building and running past his door. I believe that he killed her. And one of the things I didn't feel like I could bring up in my non-spoiler review that I wanted to bring up here was how they used the characters from the DC Comics and in the Batman mythos in this movie. You got Thomas Wayne in there, he's running for mayor, and who is also the former employer of Arthur Fleck's mother, who he's now taking care of. Bruce Wayne pops up in there in a scene that honestly, in retrospect, I feel could have been cut off, where Arthur Fleck is going past the mansion and Bruce Wayne's outside, and they have that short interaction with Arthur and Bruce Wayne before Alfred comes out of the butler and goes, oh, what the heck are you doing? Sometimes when the Batman stuff came up, I was kind of like, we don't need all this. This movie works on its own. We don't need all this Batman mythos and stuff, even though I understand it takes place in the Batman universe, in the Gotham world. Because this movie was so real world, so grounded in reality, that it was almost distracting in a way to have the Gotham and Batman stuff in it. Even though this is a Batman IP and this is a Batman character, it was very weird how that worked for me. And then let's talk about when he finally becomes the Joker, because the last act of this movie I think is what's going to be iconic down the line. Because Arthur Fleck finds a note on the table written by his mother, that Thomas Wayne was actually his father. He tries to confront Thomas Wayne, and he tells him that his mother was crazy, he was just a crazy stalker chick, and that Arthur is not his son. And it brings up a bunch of stuff in the past where he finds out he has repressed memories of his mother being abusive and in an abusive relationship, being abusive to Arthur. And so Arthur, who is so protective of his mother, so anytime someone tried to say something bad about his mother, or tried to call her crazy or delusional, he almost lost his mind and was like, don't call her that. Don't talk about that way about my mother. He goes from that guy to finding out that she was a liar to smothering her in her sleep and killing her. And that, to me, is when he snapped. That was the snap that happened. And from that point on, that was the beginning of Joker. And going back to when he was performing stand-up for the first time and he bombed, him and his mother were a big fan of a talk show called Murray Live or something like that. The character played by Robert De Niro. And Robert De Niro shows the clip of Arthur bombing on stage on his talk show and embarrasses Arthur. And Arthur gets a call a couple days later and he's asked to be on the show. And you see that great scene where he's in his apartment. He's got the tape recordings of the talk show and he's going through all these past guests and he's trying to mimic their movements and stuff, and he has this whole bit played out where he walks out and he's going to go sit down and shake Murray's hand, pull out a gun and kill himself, right? And he does this mimic where he plays the whole thing out. He goes through the play-by-play. He goes, want to hear a knock-knock joke? Bang! And then he just kind of lays there with his head over the couch for a couple seconds. And then we get a montage of him putting on the makeup to That's Life, which the soundtrack in this movie is also so great. I'm never going to hear the song That's Life the same way ever again. So he's going through the montage of putting on the makeup. That, to me, when Arthur Fleck mimics killing himself on the talk show, I believe that is where the Arthur Fleck character died, and from that point on, Joker was born, because he is a completely different character from here on out. So much to the point that when the guy who gave him the gun that he used to work with comes to his apartment to give his condolences about his mother dying, and he sees he's all dressed up, and Arthur just goes, my mother died, I'm celebrating. And Arthur, or as we should call him now, is Joker. He flat out kills the guy with a pair of scissors, and it is brutal. It gets him in the neck, gets him in the eye, and he dies. And he also brought along the little midget guy from the place that he worked that was also made fun of. And Arthur's sitting there, and he's like, oh, I'm not gonna kill you. Yeah, you can go. But he had latched the door before with the chain after they had entered the apartment, so the guy goes running past the dead body of his old co-worker, and he's trying to reach the chain, and he can't reach it, and Joker just comes over and goes, oh, yeah, I'll get that for you. Opens the door, kisses him on the head, and he just walks out. That was probably the only time that I got a chuckle in this movie, because for the most part, this movie is so drenched in misery, and it's so dire, and it's bleak. But I love it so much for that. It really just, that slow build of the first and second act really made when the Joker came to be in the third act so much more impactful and effective. And it's also when a lot of color comes into the movie. Because for the first act and the second act, the color grade is very gray, it's very dark, it's very gloomy. When he becomes the Joker, his life has color. He is found vibrant in his life. He basically feels like he finds the purpose of his life when he becomes Joker. He feels like he can be who he's meant to be. He even stops taking his medication. And in that sense, I can kind of see where the controversy coming in, because it could be if you had a mental illness, instead of seeking help, which I believe that this movie, the whole message of this movie is if you have mental issues, you need help. We need to help those. We can't ignore the signs. We have to watch for it. This is kind of like a warning for if we don't. This is something that could happen. Or this is one of the various paths that someone can choose to take if they have mental illness and don't choose to get the help. But regardless, Joker, he finds his life. There's now color on the screen. There's color on his life. He's wearing these vibrant colors now, and he has this whole different demeanor to him, a whole different posture, a whole different way that he holds himself up. And then the last 20 minutes of this movie is just Joker perfection. He goes onto the talk show, Robert De Niro's talk show, and you get that line in the trailer, when you introduce me, can you introduce me as Joker? Which is exactly what Robert De Niro called him before he showed the clip. When he embarrassed him the first time on a talk show, he says, look at this Joker, and showed the clip of him bombing on stage. So he uses that against Robert De Niro. Can you introduce me as Joker? He comes out, he kisses one of the other guests right on the lips, he sits down, and then he just spills it all. He talks about how he killed the people on the subway, which that's something I forgot to talk about. I told you this was going to be all over the place. There's the whole thing where after he kills the guys on the subway, the police are trying to find this killer clown who killed the guys on the subway because they were the higher ups, they were the rich, they worked with Thomas Wayne. And so the middle class or the people in poverty see that as a vigilante. They're inspired inspired by Arthur Fleck's actions on the subway, killing the rich people with the Wayne employees, that it causes this whole movement against the poverty and the rich, where the poverty people are wearing these clowns as inspiration from the Joker. And Arthur Fleck's on the talk show and he's talking about how he was the one that he started the movement or whatever, and Robert De Niro's like, did you mean to start a movement? And he's like, do I look like someone who could start a movement? And then he just lays it all out. He's yelling at the audience, you didn't see me, you treated me as trash, now you see me. And he says something along the lines of, what do you get when you treat people like trash? Exactly what you deserve. Takes out his gun and just shoots Robert De Niro straight in the head on live TV, and the audience just freaks out. He goes up to the camera and he tries to have some words in it, and it goes stand by. And we cut to a big riot at the end, and he's in the cop car, and the police officer's like, look at what you did. And he's like, I know. Isn't it beautiful? And then the ambulance crashes into the police car, and all the people free Joker, all the people that he inspired, the clowns that he movement, essentially the followers that he now has, free Joker, and he's on the cop car, and he gets up, and he takes the blood out of his mouth, and he smears a big smile on his face. And then we see the cinema where the Waynes are leaving, and the clown follows into the alley. And he's inspired by Joker to go, this is what you deserve. And he shoots Thomas Wayne and he kills Bruce Wayne's mother. So they're still able to do kind of what the 1989 Batman movie did, where the Joker inevitably created Batman, or at least had a hand in playing Batman. And that was something I wasn't expecting to see in this movie. I wasn't expecting for them to have the shooting of the Waynes. So that was a really unexpected surprise that I thought was really cool. And then the movie ends and we've got Arthur Fleck in like Arkham Asylum, and he's talking to the therapist as he's chained up or whatever, and he's like laughing or whatever, and she's like, what's so funny? It flashes to like Bruce Parents' death, and he goes, you wouldn't get it. And then we just cut to him walking out, and he's got the blood footprints as he's walking, and it's like, oh, well, he obviously just killed that woman. And then he walks down a hallway and turns a corner, and he comes darting right back, chased by one of the security in the asylum, and you just see them running back and forth as it says the end on the card. It was pretty brilliant. Which is kind of like he's embraced it. He is having fun with this now. And that's where the movie is essentially a tragedy. It's a tragedy of this guy who he needed society. Society wasn't there for him, and thus he turned against society and essentially became this madman monster and a villain. And I just think it was just such a brilliant movie. It was such a brilliant idea that Todd Phillips had to take this character that has been in pop culture for decades, completely deconstruct him, at least to the movie-going audience like myself. Maybe they deconstructed him like this in the comic books. I haven't read very many Batman comics, but from my experience, they took a character that has been in pop culture for decades, a character that I thought I knew, and just deconstructed him down, brought a perspective on him that I've just never seen before. And the movie just blew me away. This movie is just phenomenal. It's got so many themes, it's got so many ideas, it's got great performances in it, it's got such beautiful cinematography, such beautiful visual storytelling. The progression of where Arthur Fleck begins and where the Joker ends is just great. It's a tragically beautiful character arc and study to go throughout the entire ride. I mean, I honestly believe this is gonna end up being a classic in the comic book genre film category. I absolutely loved it. I can't wait to see it again. I can't wait to own it. Oh, man. And that's basically all I remember from it. At least that's what I can remember going through it. But maybe I didn't talk about everything that you wanted to talk about. So comment down below and let me know all your spoiler-filled thoughts on the Joker movie. Did you love it as much as I did? Do you think it was just alright? Have you seen movies that were better than it or had the same kind of concept that did it better? I want to hear all your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. And guys, thank you so much for joining me for this Joker spoiler review. As always, guys, my name's Zachary Milne. Thank you for talking movies with me, and hope you have yourself a great day.